Have you ever wondered why two people born from the same parents, one might be tall while the other one might be short, or why one might be light skinned while the other one is dark skinned, or why one might have blue eyes and the other one might have brown eyes, or why certain people are colorblind, others are not, others can roll their tongue while others cannot. Um, So all those questions that you might be wondering about can all be answered by the topic called genetics. So genetics looks at how certain genes um, and traits that are inherited from parents are passed on to their offspring. So to give just a quick and brief definition of what genetics truly is, we say that genetics is the study of genes and traits and how they are passed on from parents to their offspring. That's a very nice and easy and simple definition to remember for genetics. Okay, so the definition for genetics, I would define it like that. It's the study of genes and traits and how they are passed on from parents to their offspring. Okay, so we have two things here we need to understand: uh, gene, okay, and a trait. Okay, so a gene is simply a locus of point, a locus of point on a chromosome. Okay, a locus of point on a chromosome. Okay, which controls a particular characteristic. Okay, or which controls a trait. Okay, it's a locus of point on a chromosome which controls a trait. Now, what is a trait? A trait is simply a characteristic. Okay, so under genetics, mostly when we talk about traits, we're talking about characteristics. So there are genes that control certain character. Okay, the way a person behave, there is a gene that controls or why they behave like that. Okay, or a person can be tall, there is a gene on their chromosome that controlled their tallness or their shortness. Okay, so that's just the introduction to this topic called genetics, and it's quite a long topic. Okay, so under genetics, we notice that because we inherit genes and traits from our parents, and the way we inherit these genes and traits is different. Okay, it's in a unique way. Each person inherits different types of genes from the parents. Okay, and these genes have been passed on from great grandfather up till the child is born from parents. Okay, so these are things that have been passed on over generations. Okay, so this leads us to something that we call variation. Okay, now variation is just the way in which how people are different from each other. Okay, so um, it refers to how people are different from each other. Okay, how people are different from each other, and we are looking at things like height. We are different in height. Okay, we are different in blood groups. We are different in the color of our eyes. We are different in many things. Okay, many things. The color of our hair, the color of our skin. Okay, all that is what variation. Okay, now this variation, we can look at it in two parts. Okay, so we have variation. We can look at it in two parts. We have what we call continuous variation. Okay. Then we have what we call discontinuous variation. Okay, so these are the two types of variation that we have. Okay, continuous variation and discontinuous variation. So now these are better off explained using some maybe graphical representation. Okay, so once we talk about continuous variation, we can show it using a graph like this. Also, discontinuous variation, we can show it using a graph like that. It's better off when you understand something rather than just memorizing the definition. Okay, so continuous variation, the graph is somewhat shown like that. But discontinuous variation, we can show it in terms of bars. Okay, like that. Okay, yeah, just something like this. Okay, that would symbolize discontinuous what variation. Okay, so now continuous variation, the term continuous simply means that it has an interval. Okay, a variation that shows an interval. Okay, a variation that shows an interval. Okay, it shows an interval. This one, discontinuous, a variation that does not show an interval between traits. Okay, we can also finish this one, between traits. Remember, a trait is just a characteristic. Okay, so under continuous variation, examples of variations that are continuous, you can talk about height. Okay, now height, we can write an interval. Let's say we want 1.5 meters height to 2 meters. Okay, this is an interval. Okay, height can be shown in an interval because you can group. Okay, so the other thing here, this one can be grouped. Okay, you can group the interval. Okay, so you can take people 1.5 meters to 2 meters, and maybe usually when you're entering the army, they have a certain height range there would be looking for. Okay, because it can be grouped. The other thing that can be grouped is weight, the weight of someone. Okay, so here you have a specific range. Okay, so you can have people, let's say this was height, you start maybe from people who are maybe 0.5 meters, maybe you go to those who are 1 meters, you go to those who are 1.5, you go to those who are 2 meters in height. Let's say this is the height. Okay, so this will show you have people who are tall or short. Tall, here you have people who are tall, short. Okay, you can always group it like that. Okay, you can always group it like that. But for discontinuous variation, it does not show any such thing. It's either you have the trait or not. Okay, it's a matter of yes or no. Okay, it's a matter of yes or no when it comes to discontinuous variation. Okay, can you roll your tongue? Are you a tongue roller? Okay, are you a tongue roller? The answer is simply yes or no. Myself, I can't roll my tongue. Other people can roll their tongue. Okay, the other thing you can talk about here is blood group. Okay, you are either blood group A or you're either blood group B. There's no intermediate in between. Okay, so other thing we can say here about discontinuous variation, has no intermediate. has no intermediates. Okay, you either are like this or you are like that. Okay, that's on under discontinuous variation. Okay, so we have all these type of variations. Okay, many of these types of variation that we can talk about. Okay, so not to simply make this whole topic very long, we'll go to just some terminologies that we are supposed to know under genetics. Okay, terms to know. Okay, under genetics. Okay, so number one, the first term you need to know is an allele. Okay, what is an allele? Okay, so an allele is an alternative form of a gene, and these are always shown in pairs. Okay, they're always shown in pairs. For example, when you have allele that control for tallness, okay, they will be shown with a capital T and T, so they're always in pairs. So these are alleles. Okay, or you can have something like this. Okay, and the capital T here will represent dominant tall. Okay, small t here represents recessive short. Okay, so again this gives us now to two other terminologies: what is dominant and what is recessive. Okay, so we'll say a dominant allele and then we also have a recessive allele. So dominant allele is the allele that you inherit and is expressed in your trait. Okay, it is expressed in your trait. It is shown. Okay, people are able to see that you are tall, or people can see that you are short. So it is expressed in your trait. Okay, in what we call in the phenotype, and we'll look at what phenotype means. Okay, so this one, it is expressed in your trait or in your phenotype. But a recessive allele, it is one that is overshadowed. Okay, overshadowed by a dominant. Okay, by a dominant allele. It does not express itself. Okay, it does not express itself. So for example, when you look at this allele, this one is dominant. So tall, okay, so tall is dominant over short. Okay, so this particular person who has such type of genotype, we say they are tall because the shortness is recessive. It's overshadowed. It won't express itself. In such an arrangement, this person is tall. Now this, we call it homozygous tall. This is heterozygous tall, and this is homozygous short. So this person here will be definitely short. They don't have any allele for tallness. Okay, they don't have any allele for tallness. Let's go to other terminologies quickly. Okay, so the next terminology is homozygous. Okay, homozygous. So you need just to understand this pattern. Okay, so the word homo simply means same. Okay, now let's quickly write the other one, heterozygous. And the word hetero simply means different. Okay, so same meaning when you have the same alleles paired together. Okay, this refers to having the same alleles paired together. Same way. Okay, homo means same. So we can have something like this when we're trying to define what homozygous mean. Something like this, either 2 capital T or 2 small t. Okay, this is store, and it is called homozygous store. And this is short, and we call it homozygous short. Okay, homozygous short. Now heterozygous simply means different. Okay, so we can say this refers to having different alleles paired together. Okay, and this one is where you have something like this. Okay, this we call it heterozygous tall. This person is tall because remember the short is, we said it's recessive. Okay, it is recessive. Let's go to 6. We have what we call codominance. These definitions come up in exams, so I'm taking my time to explain them. So we have what we call codominance, and codominance, this is where we can say this is where two alleles both express themselves. Okay, meaning they are both dominant. Okay, for example, my own blood group is AB. So both the allele for blood group A and the allele for blood group B express themselves. Okay, there is no recessive allele. That's the key part here. Okay, no recessive allele here. Okay, no recessive allele. Okay, and now we should also talk about a chromosome. What is a chromosome? So a chromosome is simply DNA wrapped around proteins called histones. Okay, and chromosomes are usually shown like this. Just a simple diagrammatic expression of what chromosomes actually look like. And we have something here which we call the centromere. Okay, now you might have a certain point here, this certain particular point. and this is called the locus, and that is where a gene will be found. Okay, so a gene is basically just a segment of DNA that controls a particular trait. Okay, that's a complete definition of what a gene is: a segment of DNA that controls a particular a particular trait. Okay, let's look at two more um, terms, and then we'll go to something else. So term number 8, we have what we call the phenotype. So phenotype here talks about the physical appearance, okay, that has been expressed. For example, when you look at someone and you notice that they are tall, that's the physical appearance. Okay, that's the physical appearance being expressed. You're noticing that that person is actually what? Tall. Okay. 9, we have genotype. So this is now the genetic composition, what is actually found in the genes, genetic composition that a person inherits. So for example, when someone is tall, you might not know whether they are this type of tall or this type of tall. This is, we call it what? Heterozygous tall, and this is homozygous what? Tall. Okay. So these are most important types of the most important terminologies you need to understand under genetics. Okay, so now let's look at what we call Mendel's genetics. Okay, so this was founded by Gregor Mendel, who is called now as the father of genetics, one that made this interesting discovery. Okay, so Gregor Mendel, he noticed something about pea plants. Okay, he made certain observations when he looked at pea plants. So what he did at first, he got tall pea plants, and he crossed them with the short pea plants. Then what happened was, the observation was that all the plants that were born from these were all tall. Okay, that was his first observation. Okay, he got a tall pea plant and a short pea plant, and he noticed that all of them were tall. Okay, so due to this, he then later said, let me get all the tall ones. So now he got all the tall ones, these ones that he had mated. So tall, crossed it with tall, and he found that 3/4 were tall and only 1/4 was what? Was short. Okay, 3/4 were tall and only 1/4 was short. So now this made Gregor Mendel to begin to think what is really going on. Okay, then he concluded that there are certain factors that are controlling the height. How come I get tall plants and short plants and all of them become tall? Where is the short one? Okay, because all were tall, where was the short plants? And then he gets tall and tall, both of them from here, the first generation, and he discovered 3/4 of them were tall and only 1/4 was short. So he said there should be factors that are controlling for this particular observation. And these factors later on were called genes. Now, Gregor Mendel lived in a very ancient time before even microscopes were discovered, and they later came to now expound on what he had discovered after microscopes were invented. So let's look at what happened in Gregor Mendel's experiment. Okay, so let's look at Gregor Mendel's experiment. So at first, Gregor Mendel, he had a tall and short pea plants. Okay, he had tall and short pea plants. So now this, we call it the phenotype, okay, meaning what he was observing, okay, that's the phenotype. And then the genotype, it was tall like this and short like that. So we call this homozygous tall, okay. It is called homozygous what? Tall, okay. It is called homozygous tall. So now, when he made the first cross, okay, when Gregor Mendel made his first cross, what he expected was they are going to be either tall and short plants, okay. So he made a cross, okay. So we have these gametes coming up like this. They always separate before the crossing, and this state we call it meiosis. So they separate like this, okay. Then here now they begin to, so tau and so T and T, okay. And then this one here, this one there, that will be T and T, okay. Then you have this and this, you have also T and T. And later on you have this and this. You also have T and T. So you need to know how to make this cross. So here now what is taking place is fertilization. Okay, these are called gametes. Okay, so see now it's called fertilization. So he noticed that these that came out auto were simply heterozygous. And this one we call it F1 genotype, meaning that O to, that was his first observation. So now conclusion was that the conclusion here was that the gene for shortness was simply overshadowed. That's why it did not express itself. This was what Mendel actually realized, that even though these were tall, okay, look at, this is the phenotype now. They are all tall. Okay, F1 phenotype. Now this tallness is heterozygous because the conclusion was the shortness was overshadowed. It did not express itself. So now he gets this one and this one and he crosses them. Okay, so now because here now it says he crosses two heterozygous pea plants, heterozygous tall heterozygous toe, and another one which is heterozygous toe. From the first generation, so we're getting from the first generation of the pea plants. So this was, we say these are the phenotype, the genotype, heterozygous, like this. These are being crossed. Okay, now this is the genotype now. So these are the children now. Okay, then they separate at meiosis. Okay, they separate at meiosis. And they are called what? Gametes. Then you begin to cross them now. This one comes out, homozygous toe. Okay, this one comes out, homozygous short. Okay, this one, yeah, this comes out heterozygous toe. Then this one comes out heterozygous toe. Okay, so this is fertilization. Okay, this fertilization. Now we want to observe something here. Okay, we want to observe something here. What we are trying to observe is this is now the F2 second generation genotype. So this one is tall, this one is short, this one is tall, this one is tall. So you find that three quarters here are what? Tall, and 1/4 short. This was his next observation that I explained earlier. So conclusion was that even though in the first generation the short gene was overshadowed, in the second generation, so we can say the short gene expressed itself in the second generation. So you can see how these are now grandparents. A grandparent was short, but all the children were tall. But the grandchildren now, the shortness has appeared. In the first generation, it was shadowed. In the second generation, it was now expressed now. Okay. So now what does this tell us? It tells us that there are certain characteristics, certain genes that won't show themselves in the first generation, but can be shown in the second generation. Now, this answers the questions that we were asking, the questions I posed when starting the video. Why someone in the same family, first child is born tall, the other one is born short. Okay, it is because the parents could be both tall, but maybe the grandparents or the great-grandparents, the great-great-grandparents, one was short, and this shortness gene might be passed on from generation to generation and later express itself later in the later generations. Okay, so I hope you've learned something in this first video under genetics. We'll look at another type, another part of genetics, what we call genetics is a long topic, so I'll make it at least in 2 videos. So this is where we end for this particular video. Stay blessed, and I hope you share and subscribe to the channel. Share the video with your friends at school, your family members, those that are taking biology, even science and mathematics, so that we can all learn together. Have a nice day.